Hey, this is Chuck from Monocoque Metalworks. Today we're going to talk about frame rails, and I have here a set of brand new frame rails for a 6-cylinder E-Type. These would be the same for any Series 1, 1.5, or 2, whether it's a coupe, a roadster, or a 2+2. Now, before I get into all the detail about these, the moral to this story and kind of the impetus for this video was to tell you that we are now stocking and supplying E-Type Fabs frame rails. This is a brand new set of E-Type Fabs frame rails. They are made by a guy named Ulrich in the UK. He's made these for years, and in my opinion, and most other people's too, these are the best frame rails that you can get. I've got so much to say about this, I don't really know where to start. The frame rails were originally made with Reynolds 531 tubing. It was kind of a lightweight, high-strength tubing, came out in 1935 and was used in a lot of bicycle manufacturing, and then it was also used for all of the E-Type frame rails, and that includes, behind me here, the bonnet carrier and the picture frame. This stuff was all made out of Reynolds 531. As you may or may not know or have figured out, it is very difficult to work with, and it does not like high heat. And so the frame rails today are now made with something that is stronger and better, and it's a little thicker. They make it with a tubing called 4T45, and that is actually one of the only two tubings that are accepted by the FIA. So this is all good stuff. It's ready to go, and we're going to talk about that construction in a little bit. So again, let me get behind the camera and show you all the details here. I'm going to talk about the originals, how they go bad, yada, yada, yada. One thing before I jump out from in front of the camera, I'm going to show you an original here. And I'll be giving you some close-ups on this, but this is an original set of frame rails. This is what you don't want to hear. You hear that? That's rust inside of here. Now, if you hear a little bit of that, that's okay, because these were originally brazed together and they used a lot of flux, and the flux dried. It's almost like a hard rock candy. And so some of what you will dump out of here is that. It's hardened flux, but most of this are rust flakes. And I don't know, maybe you can see some coming out. But anyway, let me get on that side of the camera and show you all the details. I'll recap this in the end, but we do have sets of 6-cylinder E-Type frame rails in stock. We can get them for you for Series 1 or Series 2. The only real difference is the fan mount on the picture frame up front. I think I can get you Series 3s too. We mostly don't do the V12 cars here, but I'm pretty sure Ulrich makes those as well. So contact me if you want some. I meant to stick them back here, but I've got 2 whole sets right there in the box, plus this set. So I've got 3 whole sets in stock, and we're looking at sending some more over. I already sold some before I even got a chance to do this video. So here's some details on the frame rails. All right, so here is our set of E-Type Fabs frame rails. They're made out of 4T45. All the tubing is just like the original. It has the same dimensions, also the same little rounded radius here. And I want to show you, I was talking about how the Reynolds 531 doesn't really adapt to heat very well, and so it needed to be brazed back then. So you can see that this is an original section of a frame rail that's been sandblasted. We're going to get to that in a minute. This is that little piece that goes under the battery. And here's the same thing over here. And you can see that it is also brazed. These frame rails have an epoxy on them, so the primer is just a little thicker, so you're not really picking up that detail quite as much. Ulrich said he thinks he's going to send the next sets over with an etch that'll be a little thinner. But either way, his Frame rails are known for their precise fit and high quality of the brazing. It's a shame they've got all this epoxy on them, because there you can see there's another seam there. And so people always think they're going to jump in and fix these themselves, but the original 531 tubing does not like heat. And so it doesn't like TIG welding, it doesn't like MIG welding, and most novice brazers, I'm not the best brazer in the world, will put too much heat into the brazing process. And what happens is, as your braze or your weld dries, or not dries, cools, it cracks the metal around it. Now, that being said, I've had a lot of experience goofing around with these, because the project cars that we sell need to be shipped over to the UK or Europe or Australia as a rolling project. So I always recommend replacing the frame rails on an E-Type when you're restoring it if there's anything wrong with them. But a lot of times we just need to get these cars assembled so they can be shipped over. It's what's called a roll-on, roll-off. Costs about a quarter of what it would cost if you boxed it all up. So I have had some experience with welding on these, and I will say, kind of off the record, that it seems like MIG welding works the best if you're just fixing a little hole or something like that. This here is the main tube. It is bigger than the rest, obviously. And another reason you can't just jump in and work on these is you can't get the tubing. Even if you got some other material, you can't get it in this dimension. You can get 1-inch square tubing. You can get 1.5-inch square tubing. You can get 1-inch by 1.5-inch square tubing. But the frame rails are made out of 1-inch by 1.25-inch tubing. And down here, the main rail is 1.25 by 1.5. And you're not going to get that anywhere. These guys that make them have it made up special for them. Now, you've got your main tube down here. It's the biggest piece. That's the piece that's 1.25 by 1.5. This is the kiss of death to frame rails. Now, this frame rail came off a 65 Roadster that obviously was hit in the front. So we've got a buckling here. We've got a buckling here that you can't really see. And then we've got a buckling here that cracked. But I see this crack all the way around on frame rails that haven't been hit. And it's always right here, right behind this thing that I call the engine mount tower. I think Uric calls it the post. But either way, once this happens, you're done. You can't fix that. You can run over it with a MIG welder if you're going to ship a rusty car over to the UK, but otherwise, you cannot fix this and run the car. So really, you want to get new frame rails. Another thing is, you don't want to put tens of thousands or hundreds of thousands of dollars into an E-Type restoration and then have the frame rails go bad after it's all done. So it's really money very well spent to get some new frame rails. Okay, here is the picture frame and also the bonnet carrier bracket. Again, the fit and the quality is just off the chart. I don't know how he gets these brazed seams so beautiful, but he just does an excellent job. If you look at the picture frame, you see that you don't really see the spot welds. They're there. I mean, if you sand it down or if you look real close, I don't know if it'll really zoom in. But, and again, this one's got a little bit of epoxy on, so it's a little thicker. But you don't see the spot welds. And that's how it should be. Here's an original that's in bare metal. It is spot welded. There's one. I mean, you can't really see these spot welds either. You know, there you go. They're little tiny ones there. That's how they are. Not like the quote-unquote other guys' frame rails that look like this. That is not what you want. See that? That's no good. See down here? All right, so he pays attention to all of these details and gets it right. Okay, so let's say your frame rails look like this. They're still in the original paint. They might have some other paint on them. They're not wrecked like this one. And you say, you know, my frame rails look pretty good. Now, they've got that sound in there, and you're kind of ignoring that because you feel like, maybe it's not that bad. And so what people will do is have them sandblasted or media blasted or whatever. All right? Well, here is a piece that has been sandblasted. This is how they come back from the sandblaster. All right? And you can see this is even pushed in. Now, these things were super blasted. You can tell by the grainy surface in them, and I don't even know where this came from, but it wasn't done here. But anyway, that's the problem. And so this is the piece under the battery, but this one has, see, this is how it sits under the battery. It hasn't rusted out from a battery problem. It has rusted from the inside out. And that is what they do. See how it's rusty inside there? There's no treatment inside of there. Okay? Now, the originals, here's an original round tube. The originals were 20 gauge. All right, and 20 gauge is 0.036 inches or 0.9 millimeters. All right, now when Urich makes these, and they were 20 gauge throughout, all the panels were 20 gauge. When he makes them, he makes the main tube and all the round tube 16 gauge. All right, I don't know if I can see. It's just about double the thickness. 16 gauge is 0.060 or 1.6 millimeter. All right, and then the smaller square tubes are 18 gauge, which is 0.048. All right, now I did weigh these, and they are heavier because and again, the outer dimension and the radius is exactly the same, but the extra wall thickness is on the inside. But the originals seem to weigh about 14 pounds, and the new ones seem to weigh about 16 and a half. So you are going to add 5 pounds to your whole set, but it is well worth it. All right, I think that about covers it on everything for the frame rails. So the moral to the story is, even if you think your frame rails are great, these things have been rusting from the inside out on a 36,000th or less wall. The last 6-cylinder E-Type came off the line in 71. That's the year I was born, so they've been rusting from the inside out for 52 years. So buying a new set of frame rails is money well spent on your E-Type. It's a safety thing, it's a stability thing. These frame rails are 20% stronger. And it's also just a great place to invest money in the E-Type, so you don't have to go back and worry about it later. I have had a long-standing policy of only selling things that I make right here. That way I can control the quality. I'm not worried about moving stuff around and all that. But we get calls about frame rails all the time. I probably should have teamed up with Urich 10 years ago, but we are finally doing this. He's in a place now where he feels like he can supply these regularly, especially if he's just dealing with one guy in the US, and that's me. Now, if you are anywhere other than the US, you should call Urich at E-Type Fabs directly, and he'll send them straight to you. If you're in the US, you should call us because we're able to keep the price down by shipping them over on pallets of multiple sets. So we keep the shipping down that way and the handling and all of that. The price on these is a little more than the lowest price frame rails that are out there, but a lot less than the higher price frame rails that are out there, and the quality is better than anything else out there. I can't tell you the price on video because I learned not to say the price of things on videos, because then the video is stale after about 6 months. But I will put the pricing down in the comments, and you can call. And shipping, we just shipped the set. We're in Maryland, US. We just shipped the set down to South Carolina. I think it was about $150. So you can plan on this costing you about anywhere from $100 to $250, maybe $300 if it's going all the way out to the West Coast to ship the set of 4. We can get individual pieces. You don't want to replace one side and not the other. Just get both. And then really, I would get the whole set of 4 and just be done with it. All right, I need cue cards for these things, but I think that about covers it. The quality is great. Our service is great. We're going to get them shipped over on a regular basis. You won't have to worry about trying to get through or calling the UK or anything like that. Give us a ring and we will set you up with a great set of frame rails that I am happy to stand behind. Thanks for watching.